Welcome, everyone, to episode 15, a milestone episode for me, 15 of The Bunker Talk. I have my really great friend, Melinda Grimaldi, with me. She is a rock star, mom, attorney, boss, friend, all of it. All the boxes, she checks them. So we're going to have really good conversation today about her journey in business, her journey in building successful businesses. It's going to be a good time. Thank you so much, Melinda, for coming.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you here.
Lots of hats.
Yeah, right? Honestly, I don't know how you do it. That's kind of what I want to talk to you about as well. Like, let's just start. Tell everybody what you do, how you got started, all that fun stuff.
All right. So I have my law firm. I'm an attorney. I opened my practice in 2009. So I think it's going to be 14 years, 13 years. I don't know. I lost count after
We had
10.
A great 10-year anniversary
the board.
Okay, we're two women that also had dreams of opening a charcuterie business. It's not dead.
Maybe not.
No.
Yeah, it is. It's dead.
I mean, well, because you've done so many other things.
I have too many other businesses now.
Maybe when we get older.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Have time.
Right,
One of
right.
those businesses just for fun.
For fun, right?
Yeah. So got totally sidetracked there. But so yes, I'm an attorney. I have a law firm. We practice estate planning, real estate, and probate. And then I also own a title company. And the title company, of course, does closings in Florida. Both are here in Florida. And my main office is in Hollywood. We have a team of about 14 now. So, it's been a journey.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I've seen your growth professionally, especially professionally, right? And everything that you're doing, and you are nonstop. Like you are one of the hardest working people I know. So I remember when I met you, and you were like, I don't know if you still do this, but you know, the waking up at 4 a.m. Do you still wake up at 4?
Sometimes. When you met me, I was in a really different place and really trying to focus to grow my business financially and earn more money. So, and I didn't have as big of a team.
Right.
So
you have to do
I
it.
would wake up early at 4 a.m.
Having children, by the way.
And I picked 4 because 5 wouldn't work. I had babies at that time, and they knew I was awake for some reason. Like their spidey senses went off. So 5 o'clock, if I woke up at 5, they would wake up at 5. I'm like, shucks.
Yeah.
So I did 4, and 4 seemed to work. So I had a couple. If I woke up at 4, I gave myself about 2.5 hours, which is what I needed
time.
to. I didn't take care of myself. It wasn't for me. It was pretty much entirely working on files and giving my team instructions so that during the day I can go out and market my business and network and do my things. And so that my team already had, instruction for the day.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, and I always said, this is not scalable. Like this is not I can't sustain this forever. I do wake up early now. I don't wake up at 4 every time. Like today I was up at 5. And I worked out. So my life has changed a lot.
No, but that's kind of the journey, right? Of this road of entrepreneurship. Sometimes you got to do what others aren't willing to do to get where others can't.
Yes, but you can't do it and then mess up your health along the way.
Of course.
And like not take care of yourself. Right. So I got to a point where I worked so much that my body would just have like these little breakdowns.
Yeah.
Where it took a toll on me. And so then I would have to like stop everything and like take my care of myself and rebuild. And then as soon as I was starting to feel better, I would go back to the old ways.
Right.
And it wasn't until last year that I really started to shift that and take care of myself first.
Okay.
And then hustle.
So what does that look like for you now? Like, what are the things that you do that are special for you to take, like, so that you feel like you're taken care of?
So that varies depending on what I'm into at that time. It varies depending on how I'm feeling at that time. So today it looked like having a personal trainer show up at my house at 5 a.m. so I can still work out and force myself to get up, because now the kids are back at school, so I got to do it earlier.
Right.
What it normally looks like on a Friday is yoga at 8:15 and then working from home. Sometimes it's just taking an extra long shower and scrubbing and really just doing some meditation and yoga from home before I start my day. self-care for me is not as much like the fancy spas anymore as it is like the internal work and the internal time and the quiet time and carving out some of that so that I'm not just reacting all day long, but I have some time to reflect and be me and think through my thoughts. And
I feel like, so I'm doing this whole journey thing. And I remember, so we met prior to COVID. Yes. And I remember when COVID started vividly that we were on the phone together, and it was like right during the shutdown, like everyone was going crazy and there was no groceries, and you were at the grocery store.
Yeah.
And we were on the phone, and we were just like, what are we going to do? Like, oh, well, it's just going to be like 3 weeks, whatever, but it's been such a journey, and it has taken a toll on me as well. And I can't even imagine, having to be a mom on top of everything I do as well. Right. Like the importance, I also have now realized the importance of doing stuff for myself, not just the business. Right. Like we're two separate entities, right? Like I need to take care of myself, and the business will eventually take care of itself if I take care of myself. Right. Yeah. So I give you kudos for that, for figuring it out. I mean, in my mind, I feel like I saw you do it. I've done it to a certain level of, you have to sometimes make sacrifices. And yes, sometimes it shouldn't be it should never be yourself, right? You should never sacrifice your health, your mental status. But, it's that grind culture, that hustle culture, right?
And in real estate, there's tons of that culture.
Right.
And so I was all up in that hustle market sell state of mind, which is important to have if you're trying to grow business.
Right. That's kind of my point.
But I didn't know how to turn it off.
Right. There was no balance, would you say?
Yeah, I don't like the word balance, honestly. That's a different conversation.
Yeah. A lot of people don't.
Yep. Because it doesn't, the scale is like, when you think balance, you think of like the scale. And really life every day is not a scale. You don't have things equally balanced. But I think as long as your 365 is somewhat balanced, because some days I'm going to be a better boss. Some days I'm going to be a better mom. Right. Some days I'm going to be a better wife, whatever. Right. You can't pick all the hats.
You can't
all
do
the time.
all of them 100%. Right.
And especially if we're wearing multiple hats, But going back to the self-care and changing like your life, it gets to a point where staying the same has to be more painful than what you need to change too, because we stay the same usually because we're in a place of comfort.
Yeah.
And until that becomes more uncomfortable or painful, that's where things change. And when that light bulb finally got lit for me, my life is so much better. Everything's so much better.
Right. So, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, and your business is flourishing. So you're all the work, the sacrifices, even the correction on your part has been a positive thing.
Yes.
Right? So,
it has impacted my business positively because even though we're growing and the team's growing and we added back things into service areas and all that stuff, there's also challenges out there, right? And so me being in a stronger place internally has allowed me to be more proactive, not reactive, to be more strategic, to be more level-headed, to not let it just ruin my day.
Right.
Because that is where I used to be.
That's great. Thank you for being so honest. That's great information. So let's talk about your team.
Okay.
Tell me about your team. Tell me about the challenges of building a team. What have you learned? What advice could you give to an entrepreneur that's just starting and doesn't know where to get a team or how to start?
So that's a lot of questions.
Yeah. Give me a couple tips.
So funny enough, in the last year, I've really focused on my team because, in the beginning stages of business, most businesses are worried about where their next client is coming from. Then you grow to a certain point where I need the help. And then the help isn't helping, or the help isn't what you thought you were getting, or the help isn't the best attitude, or the help isn't staying, or the help, you can't find it, and there's a lot of, finding, growing, training, keeping, leading. Those are all different things you need to learn.
Right.
And so I realized that was one of my biggest challenges and got back into coaching again with that as one of my things that I needed to grow in as a leader, as a business owner. So I did a bunch of workshops, and I was more intentional about it, rebuilt how I interact with my team all in the last year. And so now, what I do now is monthly check-ins with every team member. I do weekly team meetings where, yes, we talk about business, but we also like get to know each other and celebrate everyone's wins. And I give them little pep talks and different things. And learning how to give feedback is huge. And learning for me not to just make it a secondary thing. Like it used to be like a not important thing for me. Whereas now, where I'm out of operations more, now where I'm more, in the leadership position because I need to be, and because I'm not doing the nitty gritty anymore of certain things that I used to do. I have time to focus on it, and I'm giving it the attention it deserves, I think now, finally. So, and then also, I think a lot of people have trouble having successful team members or employees because they don't properly train them from the beginning.
Right.
And that all stems from not having the right systems in place, the right training manuals, policies and procedures, and like the plan. So you hire someone, then what?
Right.
So we have, I've built out 2-week onboarding process. I have what I call the Closers University for my team members. So whoever starts goes through this university. They learn about how we work. They learn about our values. They learn about me. They learn about the team members. They learn about who our clients are. They learn about real estate. They learn about estate planning. They learn about how we do things and what our standards are. And of course, all the technical stuff too.
Yeah.
But that's just as important.
I would say, yeah. So I think that hiring is obviously a challenge no matter the industry, right? And I think it's because most business owners are not leaders by nature. I would say it's something that, like you said, you have to learn how to do. You have to learn how to train people. You have to learn how to lead people and things like that. And so when it's always like, even for myself, I need to scale, but like you said, I mean, I've made that mistake already where I hire someone and then I'm like, or throw them to the fire, right? Yeah, but that's my fault. I need to train them. I need to have the process in place to train them on what are the expectations of the job. This is what we do. This is how I do this specific task. And so thankfully I've done that finally. But when you're starting, it's like, do I sell the next, do I make the revenue generating activity? Do I do that? Or am I building systems?
Yeah, you're just layering the thing.
Right.
So one thing that I learned to do, and this is a good tip, is if you don't have the system or the training manual or things, have the new person as you're teaching them to help you build it.
Right.
So this is how you do this. Here's a video, record it, or have them take notes, and then you document it somewhere and just find, even if it's in the Google Docs, just start somewhere. Yep. I started in Evernote. Actually, I probably started in Docs. Then I moved to Evernote, and now I'm in Nuclino, and I've outgrown that. And but right now it's not the most profitable thing for me to do, is to upgrade the system. So that'll come with time.
Sure.
Once I hire someone to take on that project, but for now, it's not the most. You got to also decide when is your best battle time for certain things. Right. So that's coming later, maybe next year.
So I know, because I've been around you enough to know that you are a big believer in coaching and having mentorship. Tell us about that, about the impact that has had on you and your business.
So I come from a family of business entrepreneurs, right? Specifically in real estate, mostly, but everyone has had in my family some sort of either a stint or a lifelong thing in being a self-employed or some sort of business. So I came from that. When I was a kid, like, I want to be my own boss. Like that was my answer.
Right.
It wasn't until I was in high school that I said I wanted to go to law school. And I went to law school thinking I was going to take care of the family business at first, right? That was my intention. And ultimately getting into law school and then opening my practice right away, because I graduated during the recession in 2009. No one was hiring. So I opened my own practice and I figured it out a little bit at a time, but no one really taught me how to run a business. even my experiences of what I had were at a different level, right? They were different types of things. It wasn't the same. So I realized, well, let me backtrack. Once I had my first son, I needed to do it quicker. And then I started looking for answers and made a lot of mistakes. I hired a lot of the wrong people at first and spent a lot of money doing things that I thought were going to help and they didn't. And then it got to a point where like, well, I don't even know what I'm doing, I guess, right? All this marketing stuff and all this stuff. I don't even know what I'm doing. So from there, a friend of mine was in coaching and I had found the company and people were talking about it and I inquired and I finally took the plunge on something that worked for me and taught me how to be a business owner and really went all in on it. Because that's part of it too.
I was going to say that's a big part of it. I think like you can't just pay for it. It's not magic. You have to do your part.
I still did it.
Right.
You
did the work. You just needed the guidance.
Right. And I was told what to prioritize at that time and at that stage of my business. And then I left it for a little while. But I never needed coaching for accountability. I'm a doer. I'm almost like an overdoer. So what I
love that.
I'm an overdoer. Yeah. So going back to coaching, I just really stuck to it and kept going and like implementing all the things. Because there's going to be a point where you're like, I have so many things to do. I learned so many things. And then you just got to do.
Right.
So that's what I did. And then I grew my business quite a bit and then needed to learn more different things, right? New level, new devil, they say. Clearly, I had that issue. I didn't know the new problems that I had.
Right.
Where cash flow was the problem before, and where my next client is, then it became team building, and where I can't go market more because I'm stuck at the office and I can't get the help and this, the structure that I need in the office, and especially in real estate was so busy. For a while there. It was really a competitive market for anyone who actually wanted to work. So it was nuts. But we're there.
So then, so what I love that you said is that it hasn't ended, right? Like you got what you needed out of that coaching at that time, but you continue as you grow and you face new challenges. You're still engaged in mentoring and coaching.
Yes.
For the parts of your businesses that you need to get to.
Right.
So it doesn't end.
It doesn't end.
It doesn't end.
It doesn't end. And in the second round of coaching is really where I went all into like the mindset stuff. I was always into it, but that's where I really started to change my life.
All right. So let's talk about that. Talk about the power of mindset and how has it affected you?
Well, it's the center of everything because how you feel is what you attract. How you feel is how you react. How you feel is how you lead. How you feel leads to what you say and what you do.
Right.
Or don't do. So I didn't understand that at first. I remember when I first hear about it, I'm like, I don't need mindset work.
It's all that foofy stuff. Like, yeah.
I'm like, I'm confident. I know I deserve it.
Right. You knew you were a hard worker. Like it wasn't a motivation thing.
It wasn't a motivation thing.
Or not even a discipline thing.
Because when you hear certain people's mindset issues, at least when I first started to be exposed to even the term and the concepts and everything, like 7 years ago, probably 6. Some people have big layers. And we all have layers.
Sure.
That's what I call, they're like layers of an onion.
Right.
My friend Tamara taught me that.
Right.
And so we have to peel back those layers and learn things about ourselves. And some people have like really heavy layers. So those are the things that stuck out of me. I'm like, I, thank God, don't have a life where I have those layers. And so this is not where I need to focus my energy. And I really focus on everything else. And as I was realizing that the people who focused on that really had a lot more growth, that's my coaching call, remember? Had a lot more growth and quicker growth. And I was like, okay, fine. It was like, I guess I'll look into this stuff. And then I went to some workshops and I started to read some books and listen to some podcasts. So that helped me a lot. But then I really went all in the last 18 months, 2 years, and invested in higher level mindset coaching and mentorship and workshops where I really had to face myself and understand myself. And yeah, and then that's how you start making changes.
And so there's no coincidence, right? That the business personally, right? You've invested in yourself, not just in your mindset, but in your health and you've taken the time to invest in yourself in the different aspects, and it has reflected in your business.
Yes.
Right. So when someone is looking, not just on the mindset piece, but even just coaching, like if someone doesn't, because there's a lot of coaches.
Yeah, there's a lot of BS out there.
And there's a lot of people that claim to be coaches, and how? So like how does someone, like what are the things that you looked for maybe, or like for example, I have one in my space and I knew I needed someone that was far ahead of me, right? And is kind of built what I want to build.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's a million insurance coaches as well, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, how do you sift through, the bad ones and not just the ones that are super confident and charge a lot because they can?
Yeah. For me, it was always, have you done what I'm looking to accomplish?
Right.
So if I'm looking to grow my business to multi-million-dollar businesses, have you ever grown a multi-million-dollar business? Mm-hmm. If I'm looking for a mindset coach, have you overcome your own challenges? Are you sharing those challenges? And where have you come from and where are you now? Mm-hmm. And that's really where it's at, right? Because there's a lot of, there's that saying, if you can't do, teach. Mm-hmm. Like there's so many of those people out there.
So many of them.
And it's really scary.
It is.
What they're telling people sometimes. And make it seem like it's so simple.
Right.
And that it's a quick fix. And they're just putting Band-Aids on things and it's not really changing anything. Very, very superficial. I think that's the word. It's very superficial. It's very surface level.
Well, there's like coach certification programs. Like you could do it in a weekend, and then people walk out saying they're coaches, right? So it is. I feel like even in this economy, people are shifting, right? Because maybe they need to reinvent themselves, and they've had a little bit of success, and they think that then they're qualified to do it. But it really kills me to go to like networking events and like see 7 coaches, because I'm just like, how? So I also am very careful. I've been working on my mindset, and I don't have a specific mindset coach, but I have been reading more than ever. And I do feel like it has helped me. It has made me more confident. It has made me more daring, I guess. I'm putting myself out there.
Definitely. Yeah. That changing you.
Yeah. I'm putting myself, this is doing something that I would never do, right? Like I'm just taking on more challenges. Like I realize that the only way I'm going to grow is if I do things that make me uncomfortable, and a lot makes me uncomfortable. So here we are. Yeah. But those are things that not everyone can inspire you to do either. And then when you're paying people, it's even worse, right? Like that's your hard-earned money. You need to make sure to invest it in someone that's legit when it comes to coaching.
So, and then also we're in this world of massive consumption. Right. Everyone's like, what's the next coach? What's the next podcast I'm going to listen to? What's the next book I need to read? And they're just consuming information and advice and data, and then not doing anything with it.
Right.
So, you read the book, great. It has great ideas. Now what?
Right. Where's the implementation?
What are you going to take from that book and better your life or your business or your parenting or whatever you're doing, if it's going to be one of those types of books, right?
Right.
So making the shift, because after a while, everything starts to sound the same.
I was going to say there's I was reading something, or maybe it was one of my podcast guests that said that, like, eventually all of the things kind of start, it's just someone else's spin on a subject, but really you just got to implement.
Yep.
Take what applies to you and do it, and then come back for a second piece.
And then you'll hear it different maybe once you've started working on things. Yeah. Right. So how you heard a lesson 2 years ago might be different now. That's why they say sometimes it's good to reread a book, or still listen to a talk that you've already been there, done that, but you might hear something differently this time.
Right.
So that's super huge. But, what are you going to do about it?
Right.
You're going to talk about it? You're going to be
You're
about
gonna
it?
be about it? That's hilarious. It's true though.
Yeah.
It's true. Talk to me about, obviously the real estate market's tough, just like our industry right now is gotten very tough. How has your mindset helped you get through these tough times?
Yeah, it's kept me in check, I think. I've been more focused on it now than ever before.
Right. How grateful are you, right, that you started 2 years ago?
Thank goodness.
Yeah. Imagine how different it would have been.
No, because there's Chicken Littles everywhere.
You're full of the sayings today. That's great.
The sky is falling. Some people are like, the sky is falling.
Right.
But you know what? There's people still killing it.
Yep.
So at the end of the day, you can make excuses for yourself or you can get it done.
Right.
So so I remember going back to like the COVID years, I remember when everything was shutting down, and I was talking to Anthony, my podcast co-host back then, and I said, I'm not going to let this mess up my goals. I'm not going to let this be my excuse, because then we didn't know that real estate was about to like explode and take off.
Right. It was the complete opposite.
But I said, this is not going to be it. I'm still going to do it. And so I'm still telling myself that right now. It's going to look different. We had to shift, pivot the pivots, right?
Right.
And just stay focused on the finish line, right? What the goal is. And it was a very hard year for me, even last year, as everything was shifting. Here we are trying to scale, and then all of a sudden, the numbers are not what they used to be. So you had to really move fast. But if you are in a worry state, you can't think critically.
Right.
You can't think analytically. You can't make your moves.
Right.
So I was happy to be in that place where I was exercising, where I was meditating, and now I'm into yoga, which is my favorite thing of all. It led me here. And so, it just centers me.
It's one of those things where if you're focused on the doom and gloom, it's like you said earlier, right? Your mindset is what you attract. Like if you wake up every day, like in our industry, I mean, the insurance industry affects the real estate industry, right? If people can't get homeowners insurance, there's no buying of houses. So that has spilled over. The premiums are through the roof. There's no carriers, like all of that. I mean, I have colleagues that have lost $100,000 in revenue overnight because a carrier left the state, like that affects you. That takes a toll on you.
For sure. But what you focus on expands.
Right. So it's the work that you've done. So it's interesting to highlight that you didn't feel like you needed it, right? Like your layers were good, right? You did the work anyways, and it prepared you for the tough times.
Sure.
Which
Definitely.
is sometimes it's like it's worth doing the work even if you think you don't need it.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's coming ahead.
Yes, for sure. But everyone needs it.
Right. Well,
everyone needs it. You just don't know what you need.
Right.
And that's because we don't give ourselves enough time to reflect. We stay so busy. We're always consuming. We're always listening. You're driving, listening to a podcast or on a call. You get home, you're talking, you're on the phone, you're watching something. We're constantly listening and consuming and have like such busyness.
There's just so much noise.
There's so much noise, and we're not slowing down to reflect. So when you really slow down to reflect is when you hear your own thoughts and to see what's on loop. And whatever's on loop is something you probably need to dive into. And now it's gone to a point that I feel like I not 100%, but I'm at a point where I'm not looping anything anymore.
That's powerful.
Yeah. So maybe one day something will start looping, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
But I'm not saying that,
No,
like,
I mean, there's bad days.
It's a practice. Like mindset is an exercise. And a lot of times when you fix one thing, you find more broken things. Right. Or things that need tweaking, right? So I call it fine tuning. Like you have this very high tech road thing. I don't even know what that is. With little dials. And as we go through life, we need to be adjusting our dials.
Right.
But if you're not paying attention to what you need and what you're thinking and how you're feeling, you don't know which dials to move around. You don't know what to adjust for yourself, what to say to yourself, what to listen to, where who to be around to be able to be at that right frequency.
Right.
And then this has turned for me, it's turned actually super spiritual, like as I moved through it, you know, the energy thing and all that it's been pretty cool.
That's great. Yeah. That's great. So we've covered your team building, your mindset. Talk to me about your networking. I know you do a lot of teaching. You do a lot of teaching. That's one of the ways I met you, because I remember the first class I attended of yours, even though I'm not in the real estate per se, right? In the real estate industry. Well, I'm not at all, not per se, was about the importance of knowing your numbers. I know that you've always been, and it's always stayed in the back of my mind from that class. I remember that class very vividly as well. And the importance of someone, especially in the real estate industry, right? I have so much respect for realtors, because that is such a hard job. Like, you have to be so disciplined. And I think that the media makes it look like it's super easy and it's so glamorous. It's not. It's not. I mean, you don't get paid until you sell. You don't eat until you sell, right? Like
until you close.
So the not the motivation, the discipline that they require, the good ones have to get up every day and just keep going and going. And especially in this market, and then knowing the numbers and working it backwards. Talk a little bit about that, just because it applies to any business.
Sure, for sure. If you are a business owner or if you're in sales, you need to know your numbers. Right. I mean, it's as simple as that. That was probably one of my biggest weaknesses when I first got into coaching. And that was one of the things that I used to get drilled on and I used to avoid. And I used to I hated it. I hated looking at my numbers because I didn't like what I saw.
Right.
And I think that's human nature, right? Right. You avoid that stuff.
Especially at the beginning, because it's not great.
It never is when you're first starting, right? And when you're trying to build and you're trying to figure things out. So for me, I had to battle my demons in a way. And so I did that by, I have a full-time in-house bookkeeper because we have a lot of reporting and a lot of reconciling with trust accounts. Sure. And there's a lot of financial related things that we do in real estate anyways for each closing. So I took that as an opportunity to hire someone to help me with the real estate bookkeeping part, but also the business side of things. And so we've built reports and data and structure on metrics and so many other things that now there's very little that any coach or any person that wants to know something about my business. I may not know it by heart, but I can pull it up in a minute. And so down to marketing, sales, capacity, projections, all of that. And that's been through help with coaching of what I need to be focusing on. But, also what you need sometimes is what you speak on. Right. To really solidify it. Right. So that was always, that's why I always spoke about it, because I saw not just realtors, but everyone in real estate was reacting and not planning and reflecting. And if you don't have numbers, you can't even plan. Right.
So then what are the top performing realtors, right? What would you say that obviously top performing business people in any industry know their numbers, right?
Yes.
And they review them often and they pivot if they need to. That's obvious. But out of all the realtors that you work with, give me some 2-3 tips of what they have in common, right? Like what do you see is top producing behavior in the realtors that work with you that are killing it?
They never stop prospecting. I think that's it.
Prospecting.
And that's in any business.
Sure.
If your leads dry up, you're in deep doo-doo. I'm trying to soften I'm trying to soften my words I'm using. But yes, if you never can stop prospecting. And so I went through that as a business owner when I had a smaller team. What ends up happening is we get on that roller coaster, and that roller coaster is the same for everyone. It might be a different color,
right?
But it's the same roller coaster. And that's you prospect, you market, you hustle, you're selling, and then finally you get super busy. And then you get stuck in production. And then when you're stuck in production, you stop doing those other activities that got you to that point because you're focusing on the deals, right, that you have, or on the clients or the matters or whatever. And then what happens? Eventually, those
up.
leads dry up. And then you're like, oh, crap.
You have to start over.
I have to start over again. And that's what that roller coaster is. So for everybody. And I vowed that I would never, that's why I had to wake up at 4 a.m.
Right.
to work on my deals so I can go out and market.
Prospect, right.
And prospect and make relationships and find people that were interested in our services. So that's where it's at. And I think, you could talk about other things, but it doesn't really matter.
Right.
If you don't do that, nothing else matters.
Right. And I would say that's true in almost every business. No matter the industry.
We could talk about customer service and systems or whatever, but if you don't have the consistent client flow, if you can't help people, your systems don't matter.
Right.
Your team doesn't matter. Nothing matters.
Well, you can't even build a team.
It all starts with marketing and sales.
And I know that you've done a lot of teaching, a lot of speaking, because I know that you were also efficient with your time, right? You were one person, you couldn't be everywhere. So you took control of it, and then you would host the events and you would put on, talk to us about that. Do you think, is that?
So someone once told me, in my coaching program, you got to know who your customer is. You got to know who's making the decision. So whether you're dealing with a business owner, with a family, or with professionals, who is the decision maker? And the decision maker is not always your client. And for me, early on, I realized in the title space, at least, the decision maker wasn't the buyer or seller. The decision maker was the real estate professional, whether it's the realtor and sometimes the lender. So I had to very quickly, once I realized that, figure out the best way to strategically plan that. And one-on-ones are great, but I needed a wider net. I needed people to know me. And I love to teach, and I love to share. And someone told me, you need to teach them and feed them, and they will come. This is like 8 years ago.
I mean, they weren't wrong.
And so, and also I love to feed people.
Right.
So I've kind of...
Literally and business.
Yes.
She throws great parties.
So with all that, that's how it started. I used to do like little mini workshops in my conference room. And eventually we were like 20 people in the conference room. Okay, I need to do this somewhere else. And then we would find event spaces. And then eventually I started teaching for the boards. And then I started speaking. And then, it all kind of layered up. But ultimately and then I started the podcast. And there's a lot of things that all kind of tied together with finding ways for me to provide value to the decision makers in real estate, which are agents. And that came in the form for me of education and sharing what I've learned, whether it's in business or in real estate. Helping them grow as professionals, helping them grow as individuals, and helping them leverage their time. And that's what we focus on to set us apart.
Right.
Because now, out of all the people doing closings, maybe a third of them do it well, really well. I don't know. That number I just pulled out of my hat. But just to say, and how do I set myself apart from them? So we find different ways to provide value. One is my education. Two is we do the transaction coordination for them and help them leverage their time so they can focus on getting more deals. And then all other things like that, teaching them workshop, personal, pouring into them personally and different things. So that's how I've found my way.
Yeah. Well,
I enjoy it.
Well, that's important, right? It's all come together, really. All of your hard work has really paid off because you're doing what you love, you're healthy, you feel good, your business is, even in challenging times, you're thriving. All of these things have come together. And again, that's not a coincidence, right? It all stems from you. And if you're taking the best care of yourself that you have, it's evident that it's working, and we should all be doing the same.
Yeah.
What I was going to say as well too is your industry tends to be so transactional, right? That creating that relationship and providing that value and actually making a difference. Like you said, when you started your coaching, you actually did the work that they told you to do. These realtors that do what you have laid out for them, as far as like knowing their numbers, and I've seen you teach these classes with the systems and the importance of doing these things, and you lay it out for them. Like, you're giving them the roadmap. So the realtors that do it, you're making a difference in their life.
For sure.
Literally. Like it's not just teaching stuff and saying stuff to feed them.
No, these are things that changed my life.
Right. And so when that's what people, first of all, especially in the real estate industry, are looking for, because it's so, I feel like glamorous, right? Like it's so social media ish, that real estate industry. It's such a good job on social media, and realtors always look super busy and
like, look at this beautiful view.
And they're this and they're that. And then you don't even realize that like they're not producing. Right. So, and also I had Natalie Rivera on.
Yeah, she's my favorite.
I love her. She's great. And we
one of my favorites.
Yeah. We talked about that too, about how, the happy hours and the this and the glamour. Well, I mean, that's an aspect of it, and you have to do some of that, right? Because in that space, people want to work with people that look like they're everywhere and like they're busy. That's fine, but when there's actual value and substance that you're providing to people, from an angle of someone that has done it, and then you can help them with their closings and make them look like rock stars. I mean, it's genius. Yeah, it's genius, because you're kind of just, you're an education company, really, right? That practices law and does closings. Mm-hmm. So that's I think that's powerful, and it's genius. Thanks. And I've seen you in action, and I remember someone like Natalie at your trainings, and her growth has been exponential. Yeah. It's been great.
But she's doing the things.
But she's doing, and she hired a coach.
And she has a coach. Yeah.
And she has a coach. So there's no denying the impact that a coach has on you professionally, especially when you're new at all levels. But, needing a coach is
I'm
essential.
sure you've heard this before, but Michael Jordan had a coach.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Everyone. I actually, on my way here, I was listening to Tim Grover. Mm-hmm. He coached Michael Jordan and all these top level, Kobe Bryant. Mm-hmm. And like one-on-one, in addition to his team coach, he was doing like one-on-one stuff, and a lot of it's mindset and all that. But yeah, I mean, we always need someone to help refine us. Right. And it doesn't always look like a formal coach. It could be, but there's got to be somewhere where you're sharpening your tools.
Right. And the growth never stops, because like you said, you hit different like thresholds in your business or ceilings that then you need to learn something new to get to the next level.
And it might be internally.
Right.
Right. It might be as a parent or as a spouse, you have to learn things, or as like an employer,
even a team member,
as a team member, or then you're going into a new industry, and so you would need to learn about the industry. So there's always something. Mm-hmm. There's always something. If you're not growing, you're dying, as they say.
Right. Yeah. That's true. Last question before we wrap it up. I want to be respectful of your time. So, also something that business owners need to learn how to do, right, is pivot a little. So now you're doing the estate planning, right? Mm-hmm. Talk to me a little bit about that.
So I always did it, but then real estate got so busy that I kind of backburnered it, as a lot of people do in their personal lives. Right. Right. Funny enough.
Right.
Put it on the back burner. I was like, I'll get to that once I settle my systems and my team and my structure in real estate, because you can really only grow one business at a time. Mm-hmm. And having multiple practice areas was too many. It's two different businesses, even though it's all under one roof. And so now, I've been working on it for over a year now, and it's finally starting to get some good traction in the last couple months. It's a new marketing plan, new sales strategy, new production team. Everything is different. I am overlapping a few things, right, and team members for now. But it's a whole new thing. So I was always planning to do it. I didn't think I had to do it so quickly and so soon. But it was always in the books to kind of revamp that and really give it the proper attention that it needed. And it's a super important thing, right? We all, like in real estate, we're all talking about growing our legacy and our portfolios and all these things that we're going to pass down for our future and for our future generations and this and that. But if you don't protect it, then what's it all for? Right. So my estate planning business practice is also very educational based. We have weekly webinars where we're teaching families the importance of planning. A lot of people have a lot of misconceptions about it. They think they don't need a plan because they're not millionaires. Right. They think, I don't have an estate. They think, oh, everything's going to go to my spouse. They think, oh, my family will take care of my kids. If there's so many layers, like minor kids can't inherit.
Right.
So there's like so many things you have to be prepared for, just to have that peace of mind. And it's not if, it's when.
Right. Right. We're all dying.
And then planning for incapacity and planning for minors and just being financially responsible.
Yeah.
Because, and this goes like, it's kind of a common theme of everything is like, what's important to you?
Right.
Well, if it's important to you, then are you acting like it's important to you? If taking care of your family, taking care of your kids is important to you, making sure your kids will be okay if you're not here, or your spouse or your family or your parents or whatever is important to you.
Do something.
Then is it really?
Right.
Is it really? Because if it is, then you should have a plan. If it's not, then maybe I call bullshit.
Right. And then that makes them uncomfortable.
And that goes into your personal life too. You say your health's important to you, but if you're not doing something about it, I call bullshit.
Right.
If you say growing your business is important to you, but you're not doing the things you need to do to get to where you want to be, then I call bullshit. If your marriage is important to you, but you don't take the time out of your day to spend with your spouse, then I call bullshit. That was one of the lessons I learned last year is, what are your priorities? Okay, we all wrote them down. Okay, where in your calendar are those priorities?
Right.
The only thing that was a priority for me on my calendar was work. Well, lots has changed since then, obviously. But now I have my exercising on there. I have my family time on there. I have my date nights on there. I have my me time on there. I have my lunch on there. I would skip lunch or eat at my desk if I didn't have a lunch meeting. And so now just everything's changed.
Right.
But priorities and really putting your money where your mouth is, in the sense of doing acting and doing things that are parallel to your intentions
and your words.
Or your words of what's important.
It's easy to walk around and say that your family is important for you, but I mean, not just your family, your business, everything. But if it's not, your actions aren't matching it, then it's just all talk.
Right.
It's also genius, right? That you help people purchase one of the biggest assets one of the biggest investments, right, that many will ever achieve in their lifetime, and then you can protect it.
Right.
It's powerful.
So actually more and more now we're setting up the trust plans before closing.
That's great.
It's much more cost effective.
Right. Right.
And so we're educating more on that so clients can be aware.
The amount, okay, so in full transparency, my mom's family went through a terrible situation with estate planning. My grandfather didn't have anything. It was awful in our family. So we learned the hard way because there was a guardian appointed to my grandfather and my grandmother. It was a terrible situation. All the funds got eaten by the guardianship, right? So my grandfather was the only one that worked, had like 13 kids, saved $1 million, which was hard to do in that time. Yeah. And it was eaten up by the guardianship. It was a disaster. So we learned it.
Yeah.
And my parents have always been professionals and they worked and, pretty, I would say above average, citizens. They didn't make a lot of money, but we had nice, we went to Disney World once a year. I got shoes for the school year, but we weren't in any way, we didn't need anything.
Yeah.
But we didn't know about it. So many people do not understand. Everyone thinks that is something that rich people need. I don't have anything. I don't need it. No, if you own a home, you need it.
If you have kids, you need it. If you own real estate, you need it.
Kids.
If you have assets, you need it. If you're a human being, you need it. What you need is different, maybe.
Right.
But needing a plan is consistent throughout, no matter who you are.
Like even parents that their kids are going off to college. Like you don't realize if your kid is away at school and they're in the hospital and they're 19, you're not getting any information from the doctors there unless it's what the medical power of attorney, whatever it is. I even know that because I've heard someone experience it.
You can't get information and you can't make decisions if they can't make it for themselves.
Like how many parents before sending your kids to college are taking care of this? I don't think that a lot of people know. So, of course, I commend you for educating again, right?
Thank you.
People need to understand that this is not for rich people. This is if you have children, who's making their decisions, anything that needs to be protected. And then it needs to be updated with life changes. Like, don't do it and forget.
So big life changes usually can trigger an update. But a lot of times we build in backup plans in the way we strategize our plans. I want to share. So I always did estate planning from when I opened my practice, pretty much from the beginning. But I only did my plan probably when my son was like 2 years old, my first son. So 8 years into being a lawyer or so. And I said, oh, I'm busy. You know, I had all these excuses, right? I'm too busy. I'm a young mom. Was building a business. I had all these things going on. It's like my little secret that I'm sharing right now. And I'll get to it. You know, I'm young. Like it's not an urgent thing. But what was it really? What was me not doing it really? I didn't want to face my mortality. My parents didn't have a plan. I didn't want to face their mortality. I didn't want to have the hard conversations.
Right.
I didn't want to, focus on those hard scenarios and thinking what if, right? Focusing on the right now versus planning for the future. And that's me being a lawyer where I could do it for myself so I don't have cost concerns. I understand what it does. I understand the importance of it. I don't have any misconceptions about it. So I get where everybody's at because I felt that, and I don't even have all those other things, right?
Right.
So I always share that when I'm teaching because it's reality.
Right. It is. That's like my parents, again, being above average, right? Intellectually and with their jobs and stuff. If it wasn't because that happened in our backyard with my grandparents, they didn't have it. That motivated them to get a trust and to do all that. But unless it happens to you or someone actually can educate you well enough to touch your heart, right? It's really an act of love to leave your that is how you protect your legacy. And I love the video. I actually reshared it yesterday of the backpack. Right. Yeah. Because you get to pass it on. It's great. And people need to understand it that way. I'm super passionate about that subject because we lived it and we saw what it destroyed my mom's family to this day. So it is a way to make those decisions. So the people that you think are going to make your decisions will not make the decisions you believe once you're gone. Right. Like you just make them now. And I agree. And especially if there's stepchildren or second marriages, they don't want to they especially don't want to have those hard conversations of like who gets what kid gets that. Needs to be, it's a white glove service. Handling the emotions of those conversations. The
conversations are hard, but what happens after if you don't plan is even worse. Because you risk,
and the cost
you
is
risk
worse.
Your kids getting disinherited in a blended family.
Yes.
And there's a lot of, the traditional, spouses with kids from the same marriage. Okay, there's challenges there too, but because you risk probate and guardianship and all that and the time delays and losing assets and value, whatever, it's all important. But if you start to add other family dynamics to it, same-sex couples, unmarried couples, single parents, blended families, maybe adult children that are not the most financially mature or made good decisions.
Special needs children.
Special needs. All those extra layers.
Complex.
Create even more of a tornado effect if something happens. And leave sometimes families really in a bad shape afterwards. Emotionally, financially, and altogether like
destroyed. We witnessed it, unfortunately. So we are super passionate about that because we lived it. And so I'm glad to know that that's also something you can do. Thank you so much for being here. I didn't even talk about your content creation. Like there's so many other things that we need to talk about. So you'll come back.
Maybe we'll do a round two.
For sure. We're going to do a round two.
We'll have to do that just to hang out.
We're going to put it on the calendar, right? So I appreciate you so much. You've had so much impact on me personally.
Thank you.
I appreciate you, your friendship, your mentorship, even from me watching you. You are a powerful woman, more powerful now that you're taking care of yourself. I love that. I'm excited to have you back.
I'm excited to come back. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. That's